Chat with Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest in a while, but he is here. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Casey. I think it's been a couple weeks since we've been together.
Do you have any idea how many miles you've probably put on this year? You know?
Oh, I don't count anymore.
Okay.
You know, we stopped at about 300,000 on the first campaign and just stopped counting. So, yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. I tell people it's not an unusual day to spend 8 or 10 hours in a car just driving, getting from point to point to point. And, you know, that's like a long family vacation trip for a lot of people. We do that about every day.
All right, so now I have to ask, what's the thing other drivers do that drives you insane?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm sitting there riding generally, so I get to watch people. But the biggest thing is texting, to be honest. I mean, it really is almost unbelievable how many people are staring at their phones, not even looking up while they're driving. They're like deeply immersed into their cell phone as they drive down the road, and they're all over the road. You can see them, you know, 300 yards ahead of you, and you go, yep, they're texting. You know, it used to be that's how drunk people drive, but now it's how texting people drive.
Well, give them a little. Don't you have state troopers that travel with you? They know how to pit maneuver people.
Yeah.
Just say you spit a few in the ditch, and maybe the message will spread. All right, let's get into a couple things. If you're following this story out of Mexico with this family down in Mexico, I've heard the story. I'm not following it closely, but I know the story. It's just horrific stuff. And what's leading me into it is Donald Trump then tweeted, because that's what he does, and he tweeted, hey, you know, this is a huge issue. Cartels are a huge issue. If you want America to help, we're here. The Mexican president said, nah, we're good. Then they arrested some dude immediately, which I'm suspicious of, because usually it's harder than that. That being said, the point that the problems faced from violence, whether it be cartel violence or any other drug-related violence, it's a duality thing, right? It's not just Mexico, and it's not just here in the U.S. Yeah. And one of the ways that we are constantly dealing with this here in North Carolina is many times some of the folks that do really heinous stuff find themselves arrested for something here, and then you find uncooperative sheriffs are not going to work with ICE to get the very same people that are committing these offenses. These are not jaywalkers, back to Mexico. So this is a problem that hits very close to home, and I noticed it's something I've seen you tweeting about a lot and talking about a lot. What is the response you're getting, and have you had conversations with these sheriffs, and what do they say to you?
No, I honestly have not had conversations with the sheriffs, Casey, but the reality is that the people on the street, the average person out there is really appalled at this. I'd say that right now in North Carolina, this is the number one issue in our state. This is the thing that people are paying attention to, especially in our big cities. That's where these sheriffs are. It's just a handful of Democrat sheriffs that are newly elected that are really taking this political stance, because even as you and I have talked about before, it is common practice for local, state, and federal law enforcement to work together. That's why we have fusion centers. There's fusion centers in every state where these all the law enforcement entities get together to solve crime and to deal with this stuff. This has been standard practice forever. This is not unusual. It's not new. It's not anything extreme to work with the federal government on issues like this. But you are, as you mentioned, you're not talking about traffic violations. You're not talking about jaywalking. You're talking about people who commit heinous crimes, and then for political purposes, these sheriffs are kind of staring down the federal government going, no, we're not going to let you have these people. We're going to release them back out into our communities. And that is about as egregious as it gets when it comes to law enforcement. And I tell you, the other sheriffs are livid on this. The Sheriff's Association, the other 95% of the sheriffs out there who don't agree with this are livid because they're getting a bad rap on this, and this is not what they believe.
Yeah, I actually, when I was up in D.C., they had their big sheriff's conference up there, literally at the same time we were up there, and I happened to see Sam Page. Yeah, you know Sam, and so we had Sheriff Page on, and he's just, he's dealing with that, but he's also has to deal with the opioid thing, which is huge up there. For him.
It is. I mean, he's Rockingham County, and they obviously opioids is not an issue just for urban centers. This is all over the country, and the rural communities get hit just as hard. And it's not a poor or anything else type of drug use problem. This is average middle-class Americans who are getting addicted to opioids. And so, yeah, they're dealing on a lot of fronts. But Sam, case in point, he is, or Sheriff Page, he's one of those folks that's absolutely livid about this too, because he will get a bad rap. People will look at him and say, "Why are you doing this?" And he's like, "I'm not doing this," Yeah. So the vast majority are doing the right thing, but a handful, again, it's just for political posturing, because that cooperation's been there a long time, but now our communities are literally in danger, especially our urban communities. They're in danger. You can follow ICE on Twitter. It's probably the best way to track what's going on, because they'll kind of give you up-to-date, minute-by-minute tracking of what these sheriffs are doing.
All right, so a few things do continue, or at least continue to be in the news. They have another redrawing session over congressional maps again today?
Yeah, they're gonna redraw the congressional districts. I think that'll happen pretty quickly. This is round 52 since you and I have been talking on the radio. Again, just straight out of the Democrat playbook, sue till we're blue. And
explain that, Dan. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would you explain this? Because I mention it, but I don't think people understand. I think they think it's like citizens organizations, and they don't realize that there is organized national organizations, one of which is run by Eric Holder, or Eric Holder's one of the figureheads. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be as brief as I can on this story, but I was invited to an event up in Virginia, and this was or in Philadelphia, rather, it was the opening of a museum, and I'm there with a bunch of Democrat governors. I'm the Republican lieutenant governor. I don't think they knew I was a Republican. In fact, I know they didn't. And I was sitting right next to dinner. I was sitting next to Terry McAuliffe, who was at the time the governor of Virginia.
Yeah.
And Jim Florio, former governor of New Jersey, was across the table from us, and he asked the governor of Virginia, he said, don't you think our policies as Democrats are going too far left? Don't we need to come back to the middle? And Terry McAuliffe said, no, we're right on track. In fact, let me tell you what we're doing. This is how we're going to win. He said, I go out almost every weekend now with Obama and Eric Holder to raise money for these redistricting battles. We are going to raise $400 million to sue in all the battleground states over redistricting, because we know that we can sue and win these things in the courts and get our districts redrawn so we can get our Democrat majorities back. And so this wasn't about gerrymandering at all. It's just about raising $400 million so that you can go and sue in battleground states. And that's what they've been doing. So if you look at our districts, as I know you have, what the Democrats drew with the old 13th district in North Carolina, the 12th district in North Carolina, went from Charlotte to Greensboro and was about an inch wide.
Yeah.
That was the most gerrymandered district in America, probably. But you did hear the Democrats complaining. They loved it, in fact. You didn't hear anybody suing over that. And now you have hundreds of millions of dollars being poured into states like ours to sue over this thing. And that's been the plan all along. So this is part of their strategy.
Ironically, during redistricting, they trimmed that district, or they widened it and lessened the length of it. So arguably, they cleaned it up.
Yeah, that's right. And they did that with all the districts. And if you follow along county lines and precinct lines and those kind of things, they're actually really clean. They're as clean as they've been, certainly, in my lifetime.
Well, again, this is an elections has consequences kind of thing. People, they often scratch their head. How do you deal with redistricting? You run on it. Put it out there, run on it, because this
right.
California's model has failed. This model that people are wanting to recreate, it's absolutely failed. It's a mess, and it's very left-leaning. And this is the land of, what do they call them, jungle primaries, or however they do it over there. It's craziness.
Well, yeah, that, and along with their absentee ballot harvesting, which was a lawsuit in North Carolina, and now they're promoting it in California to win elections. So lie, cheat, and steal your way to victory. That's really unfortunate, but the redistricting piece is really just a whole bunch of nothing. That's really about Democrats just trying to sue till they get control back.
Finally, on the budget, so last we left, we basically had Republicans wanting about, what was it, under 4% teacher pay raise. They offered to go higher if Democrats will help them do the override in the Senate. It sounds like that didn't sway anybody. The governor's asking for twice that. What happens if nothing happens from a budget standpoint? Do people not get paid?
Nothing.
Do roads not? Well, roads won't get fixed because we spent all that money. twice.
Yeah.
That's a mess. Frankly,
Not we, but the DOT.
Yeah.
The DOT and the governor's Department of Transportation.
So what happens?
Billions of dollars.
Yeah.
What happens is you basically you stay as is. So the last budget stays in effect. We passed about 90% of the budget. About 90% of that has actually been passed through small, mini budgets, if you will. The teacher pay thing was at 3.9%. Keep in mind that it's 20% over the last 5 years. And that's the third largest amount in the country for teacher pay increases. We're number 3 in the country for that. And the governor's sitting there saying it's not enough, it's not enough, it's not enough. Well, I mean, nobody's ever said enough is enough. They've just said we're doing this on a recent path, and we're doing more than the vast majority of the country's doing. And so this would have been 3.9% more again for teachers. Governor vetoes it. Nothing's going to happen. So I guess he thinks nothing's better than 3.9%. And that's kind of sad. But, the rest of the budget, we don't have a government shutdown in North Carolina like the feds do. So things just keep ticking along based on the old budget. But this was a good budget, Casey. We talked about it before. But this was, I've been lieutenant governor for 7 years. This was by far the best budget I've ever seen.
Well, don't worry. There's teacher protests today. I think there's, over in Durham, there was like 4 schools that were having teacher protests. And they're all wearing red. It's weird.
Imagine that.
Yeah, pretty crazy stuff. All right, so because the government shutdown is a question I had, or not I had, but I get, and I'm like, well, we don't do that here. But what does it actually mean? All right, continue the continuation of where we're at. And then so that DOT thing. If you got just like 2 minutes, how do you even begin to clean that up? For folks who don't know, we're talking over budget to the tune of millions, billions, right?
Billions.
Yeah,
billions. The Republicans stopped raiding the highway fund and the highway trust fund when they got elected. Kind of put a lock on that, so to speak, and the governor came in, and the treasurer and the governor are having a showdown right now because the treasurer says, hey, you can't do that. This is against the law to come in here without getting the treasurer's approval to raid this fund and take billions of dollars. It's over $1 billion out of the highway fund and highway trust fund. And then you're laying off people, and you're not building roads and not completing projects. Everybody's like, this is just a complete mismanagement of the taxpayers' dollars. And, people need to know where this is going, what's going on with this. And that's not good right now. It's not a good situation at all.
Do you think maybe they tampered with Dale's motorcycle? Is that what happened?
Dale, he just, that man, I told him, I saw him yesterday, and he was in a lot of pain with his arm. I'm like, please make that your last race and your last jump. I think he was on the last lap of his last race, so he says, and broke his arm. So it's kind of a mess, but yeah, he does crazy stuff like that. But
well, he's good at it. Norm, he's won.
He's
people
been very
are
good
missing
at it.
that. He's won like national championships in his age bracket, so he's not some rube who just got on a motorcycle. But
no, not at all. But there's just some things, man, that we just don't do as we get older. That would be one of them.
That would be one of them. All right, I appreciate. All right, so you're not going to be riding out on election day and maybe jump some cars or something?
Not on a dirt bike.
Okay.
Not on a dirt bike.
All right. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right, man. Take care. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.